Okay, so the second type of loader that we are going to discuss about is called as a bootstrap loader, right? So as I said, the word bootstrap or bootstrapping is something like one thing starting another. Okay, or as I said, it's something like a domino effect. Okay, so one thing is started, so that will start another one, and that thing will start another one, and so on and so forth. The process would actually go on. So this process is actually known as bootstrapping or bootstrap, okay, or the program that actually does that or something that is responsible for doing that is called as a bootstrap, but the process is called as bootstrap, right? Now, why are we discussing about this type of a loader? Okay, so before going to this discussion about bootstrap loader, so let us ask one question. Okay, how does your system actually boots up? So when you turn on your system, I believe everybody has a laptop or a PC at home, or you have used that. Uh, what actually happens when you turn on your system? When you turn on the power button of your laptop or your what is that, PC, what actually happens? Have you thought about it? Your system turns on, correct? Right? Or what actually happens? Can anyone answer? When you turn on your power button of your laptop or when you press the power key in your PC, what actually happens? Okay, your system turns on, and what do you see actually? Right, your system would actually boot, right? Your system would actually boot, and you directly see the operating system, correct? Your operating system starts booting, and once your operating system is booted, you will be able to see your login screen or something like that, and then you'll be able to use your system. Okay, but you know that your operating system actually is installed on the secondary storage, correct? Your operating system is actually installed in the secondary storage because when the power is off, right, when your system is turned off, you know that the main memory gets cleared, correct? So when the main memory gets cleared, there is going to be nothing in the main memory. So your operating system is in the secondary storage, and when you turn on your system, it is getting loaded into the main memory, and your system is turning on. Okay, or the system gets booted. Okay, so if operating system is not present in main memory when I turn on the system, then who actually loads the operating system? That's the question. I hope you have got the question. The operating system is not going to be there initially in main memory. So if the operating system is running when you turn on your system, then obviously somebody might have loaded the operating system into the main memory. Correct. So who loads the operating system into the main memory? That's the question. The operating system on its own cannot load. So somebody has to load it, right? So what's the mechanism that is used in order to load the operating system and boot up your system? So that's the question, right? So the answer to that question, of course, I will stop asking questions. Uh, the answer to that question is that there is a specific program called as a bootstrap loader that actually does that job for you. Okay, so this bootstrap loader is responsible for loading your operating system when your system is initially turned on. Okay, so this does not reside in secondary storage. If you remember, there is a type of storage called as ROM, okay, which is read-only memory. So where once you write this program, it will reside. So as the system is turned on, so this particular program which is present in ROM loads itself into the main memory at a specified address. Now this makes this an absolute program. Okay, so the loader itself is an absolute program that loads at a specified memory location. So once this loads, its main purpose is to load the operating system, which is present in the secondary storage. Okay, so from that secondary storage or from the device, it is going to load your operating system into the main memory, and it will start the execution of this program. So see here what is happening. So system is off, memory is completely empty. When you turn on the system, one program gets loaded from the ROM or read-only memory. Okay, so it loads at a specific location. So once it loads, it begins the execution. So what is the purpose of that particular program? The purpose of the program is to load the operating system from the secondary storage. So what it does is it will load the operating system in turn. See, one program started executing, in turn it is loading another program to execute. Now operating system might have its own modules, right? So once the operating system begins to execute, it would load its modules that are required in order to start your machine, okay, and make it usable. So this process is actually called as bootstrapping. Okay, as I said, it's something like a domino effect, one causing uh, something to do with another, right? So this is how the bootstrap loader actually works. So I hope you have got this idea. So this is the importance of having a bootstrap loader. So its main purpose is to load the operating system into the main memory and begin its execution, right? So that's the description here. If you can read, when a computer is first turned on or restarted, okay, what happens? A special type of absolute loader. So this is an absolute loader, means it has to load at a specified location. Now why, if the question has arisen in your mind, you know that ROM is read-only memory, means once you write any program into it, it's fixed, it cannot be changed. Okay, so if you have written a program that should load at 0000, then it will load at 000 only. You can't make any changes to it. Okay, so that's why it is called as an absolute loader. Okay, so this absolute loader is also known as bootstrap loader, which will be executed when the computer is first turned on. Okay, so this bootstrap loader, what it does is, since it is the first program to be run by the computer system, so normally, so it is responsible for loading the operating system later. Okay, so normally what happens is, so this bootstrap loader would load itself at address 0. That's what I said. So initially the memory is going to be completely empty. Main memory is going to be completely empty. So I can load the program anywhere I want. So what I will do, I will load at address 0000. So I will generate an absolute program or a bootstrap loader that will load itself at 0000. So it loads at 0000, and we will assume that this is going to load your operating system at address 80. So it is loading at 0000. So from 0000 to 0080, it will occupy the space. Then from 0080, it will load the operating system. Okay, so this is how the bootstrap loader normally works. Now how exactly it does that and how it loads the operating system and begins the execution of operating system, that's what we are supposed to look into. Okay, so the object code is loaded into consecutive bytes of memory starting at address 80. So from the 80 address, you will have the operating system. So after all the object code has been loaded, the bootstrap loader is going to jump to address 80 to begin the execution of the operating system. Okay, so this is the job of a bootstrap loader. Okay, now we shall look at the algorithm for bootstrap loader. Okay, it's not an algorithm, it's basically an program. This is also asked so many times in examination. So write the algorithm. They have asked for writing algorithm for bootstrap loader. You can write the same thing. Okay, or a program for bootstrap loader, you can write the same thing. Okay, so let us look into this program in detail, right? So boot start 0. Of course, if you have listened to the previous lectures of assembly level language program, you know that this is the start assembler directive, which gives us the information about the starting address of the program and the name of the program. So the name of the program is boot and the starting address of the program is 0. So what does it mean? It means that this program is supposed to be loaded at address 0000. Okay, so assume that this program loads at 0000. Now we have a device called as F1. Let us assume that we have a device called as F1 where the operating system is stored, right? Where the operating system is actually stored. Now this operating system program has to be loaded at address 80. So this is the purpose of this program, right? So it has to read from this device and it has to load the operating system at 0080. Okay, and now throughout we will assume that this particular program is already loaded at 0000. Now at 0080 we are supposed to load the operating system. Okay, so this is the scenario, right? Let us now look into the program. Okay, how does it load the operating system program or the operating system code from the device F1 into the memory location 0080. So this is what we are supposed to look into. Okay, so let us start with first instruction, which clearly says clear A. Okay, so obviously command says that we are supposed to clear the register content A. We don't want anything else to be present in A. We need to get it cleared. Okay, now we are also setting the index register to some value. So that's why LDX hashtag 128. So 128 in decimal is nothing but 80 in hexadecimal. Okay, so what does it mean? It means that index register now contains 0080. Okay, so it is pointing to here. X is pointing to this location. Okay, so immediately we will call a subroutine called as getC or getCharacter. Okay, so this particular subroutine is going to read the hexadecimal digit from the program that is being loaded. Okay, so assume that your program is something like this 14 14103, something like this. Okay, I'll assume that this is the instruction. Okay, this is the operating system instruction. Okay, or maybe 4C or 2039 or something like this, 2031 or something like this. So this is the operating system program. Let us assume, right? Now all of these things are hexadecimal characters. So we will get these hexadecimal characters, or we'll read these hexadecimal characters into our register A. Okay, or into one more register yes. Okay, so to read that we call this particular subroutine, which is called as getC. Okay, now let us straight away move towards getC, which is present over here. Okay, so this is the subroutine. So what does it do? So I said that the operating system is present on a device. Okay, so let us assume something like this. 2C, something like this. Okay, so this is where our operating system program is present. Okay, so first of all, to read from this device, I need to check whether this device is ready or not. Okay, so how do we do that? We already know whenever we want to access any device, we are supposed to check whether the device is ready or not. If it is not ready, we have to wait, and then we have to either perform read or write. Okay, so here we are trying to perform read operation, but before that we have to check for the readiness of the device. So we will first check, okay, by using td input. Now what is input? You can see that input is a device that has been declared as F1. Okay, so first we check the readiness of the device. So if it is not ready, then an equal to sign is going to be set in the status word. Okay, so what will happen? We will check for that. If it is equal to, then we are once again going back to the previous statement and checking the readiness of the device again. So this is a loop. Okay, if you remember computer organization, then this process is actually called as polling. Correct? How many of you remember this process? I would like to know. Did you have computer organization subject? CO. Okay. Yes. Right. So you had CO. If you had CO, then you might have come across a chapter called as input and output. Right. So in that, how input and output is performed in a computer. So that was the major discussion there. So whenever we are supposed to interact with the device, we use this logic called as polling. Okay, so this is what polling is. This is what polling looks like. So what the drawback of polling is that we are wasting CPU time because we are simply looping around the same set of statements again and again. So what would happen here is the device would check for the readiness of the device, TD input. If it is not ready, jump if equal to get C. So once again it will come to get C. Once again it will execute TD input, this instruction. Once again if it is not ready, then go back, execute again. If it is not ready, go back, execute again, right? So it is looping here again and again. Okay, it is the computer is executing the instruction, but basically it's executing the same instruction again and again, and it's a waste of time. If the device is not ready, what we can do is we can switch over to some other program and basically execute that particular program. Then when the device becomes ready, we can come back, right? So that's how things should be. So instead of wasting the CPU cycles, which is the major drawback of which is that polling, we introduce a new concept. Do you remember what is the solution that we had come up with in CO? See, because we are discussing about the execution of programs at the system level, all these things you are supposed to understand and know. What was the solution for polling? Does anyone remember? The solution for polling was, if you remember, interrupts. Okay, so I don't know whether you have heard about interrupts, but it is a concept that overcomes the drawback of polling. Okay, what happens in interrupts? Does anyone know? Okay, at least have you heard about this concept, interrupts in computer organization? The answer is yes or no. Okay, good. From B section? Right, okay. Thank God, at least you have heard about interrupts. Okay, so what happens in interrupts? In interrupts, basically, the device itself will send a information or a signal to the system or to the CPU saying that it is ready. So how did we overcome the problem of polling? The problem of polling was overcome by ensuring that the device, or sorry, the CPU does not waste its time executing the same instruction again and again. So if the device is not ready, the CPU can simply switch over to some other program. So when the device becomes ready, the device itself sends a signal, and then the program can be executed, or the CPU can switch back to the program and start its execution, right? So that's the concept. So I believe now you can tie up the things from CO with this one. So as I was saying, so this is a concept of polling here. Okay, this is a concept of polling here. So this polling concept is used in order to check whether the device is ready or not. Now let us assume that the device gets ready. In that case, a less than symbol 2 is set. So we are then now ready to read the contents from the device. So what is the device content? So how do we read from the device? We use the RD command and we specify the name of the input device. So name of the input device is here input, which is nothing but F1, right? So now the device gives us something. Okay, so this is device F1. So let me assume 141039 is there. So what does RD do? It will read 1 byte. Okay, it will read 1 byte. Right? Now, since I'm reading from a device, I should know when exactly to stop. Okay, so if I read something that is 4, okay, so which is hexadecimal 4. Here it is mentioned as hexadecimal 4. So hexadecimal 4 is a marker for, don't confuse that with this number. So this is decimal or hexadecimal 4 only, but this is not the one. So hexadecimal 4 value is for end of the file, EOF. Okay, or you can also assume that this 4 will not be used in the operating system program, something like this. I have written here 14 just for my reference. So if whatever has been read is equal to hexadecimal 4, then it indicates the end of the file, or it means that we have already loaded the entire operating system and we are at the end of the operating system program. So at that time, what we are supposed to do? It means that in the memory, operating system has been completely loaded, correct? So what we will do, we will jump to address 80 to begin the execution of the operating system. So the job of the absolute loader is over. So at that point of time, we will jump to address 80 to begin the execution of the program. So this is the first thing. So you read the content. If it is equal to 4, then you will jump to address 80 to begin the execution of the operating system. Okay, now you can also think of these two statements as the exit condition. Okay, so this is the exit condition of our absolute loader. Okay, so if you read something from the input device and if it is not equal to 4, okay, it is something else, then what you do is you compare that with hexadecimal 48, okay, or sorry, decimal 48 or hexadecimal 30, which is character 0. Okay, why is because if anything is less than this, okay, then obviously it's not a valid character, or it is nothing that we are looking for. So it should be more than 0. Okay, so that's why you check whether it is less than 30, compare that with 30. So if it is less than that, then you skip that character and you go back to get C to read from the device again. So whatever character you have read, it was a waste, so we are not considering that. So we're skipping ahead to read the next character. So if it is 30, right? If whatever you have read, if it is more than 30, then what we do is we subtract from that hexadecimal 30. Okay, why? Because I need to get 0. Okay, for example, if I have read 0, from the device I will get hexadecimal 30. Okay, but I want 0. So if I want 0, how much I have to subtract from this? I have to subtract 30 from it to get 0. Okay, for example, if I have read, if I am supposed to, if I have read 32, for example, okay, so what is 32? If 30 is 0, 31 is 1, then 32 is hexadecimal 2, sorry, decimal 2, okay. So I want this value, decimal value I want, okay. So how much I need to subtract in order to get the decimal value 2? Obviously I need to subtract from 30 so that I will get 2, right? So you will do that. So we will not read the, even though we are reading the hexadecimal value, I want to store the decimal value. So that's why if it is more than 30, we will subtract 48 from it. Okay. Now we know that the hexadecimal value starts from 0. Obviously 10 will be A and then 15 will be F, right? So from 0 to 9, I will do this. I will subtract 30. Okay. But if the characters that I read are A to F, then I need to additionally subtract 7 from it. Okay, I need to additionally subtract 7 from it, right? So if the red value is more than, sorry, if it is between 0 to 9, then I only subtract 48. So compare that with 10. So if the result is less than 10, it is 0 to 9, right? So I have got no issues. So conversion is over. But if it is not, then I need to subtract 7 from that again because of the characters A to F. Okay, so I will do that and I will return to the main subroutine. Means what? One character from the device has been read. This is what actually it is. Okay, like for example, if it was 141039, let us assume. Okay, so when I read 1 from the device, it is nothing but hexadecimal 31. So what will happen? We will subtract 30 from it. I will get 1. So since it is less than 10, when I compare it with 10, it is less than 10, right? So I will return that value to the main subroutine, okay, from wherever it was called. Got it? So if it was A or something like this, okay, then after subtracting 30, again I will subtract 7 from it. So whatever the resultant is, so that I will pass on to my main subroutine. Okay, I hope you have followed this. So this subroutine is going to be called again and again until everything is read. Okay, so now I will get back to the main subroutine. I hope you have followed that. Any doubts there? Okay, right. So jump J sub get C. So get C has given us something. Okay, so it has given us, let me assume 1. Okay, now this is a character, 1 byte character. Okay, or we can assume that this is the value that they have given, 8 bits value. So what we'll do is we will move that to the register yes. Okay, so it's available in A. I'll write the content of register A here, 8 bits, because at a time we'll be able to read 8 bits using RD. Okay, so RMO, what does it do? It will move, register move. RMO stands for register move. Okay, so what we are doing, we are moving the contents of A to yes. Okay, so what was the content of A? It was 1, right? So I'll write 1 here as 00000001. So this is what I have got. Now I'm moving the same content into yes. So this is 00000001. Got it? Okay, so this instruction has moved the content of A to yes, right? Now there is a purpose for doing that. Okay, so next what we are doing is we are doing a shift operation on yes. How many bits? By 4 bits. Okay, so shift left. So we are moving the contents of yes towards left. So what will happen? These 4 half byte will become this, right? So it will become 0001. Now this will obviously be padded up with all zeros. Now the reason why we are doing this is, see, when I read the value from F1, okay, when I read the value from F1, see 141039 is there, correct? So this entire instruction is how many bytes? 3 bytes, correct? So when I read 1, okay, when I read 1, how many bytes it should be actually? This should be only 4 bits. But how much I have got? I have got 8 bits in A. When I read that, I got 8 bits in A. So what I need to do is, I need to compress this so that it only takes 4 bits. So that it only takes 4 bits. So that's why we are doing all of this circus here. Okay. So I believe you have followed this. I don't know whether it can erase this or not. Sorry, I cannot erase this. Okay, so shift left by 4. So now S at the higher bits contains 0001, the lower bits contains 0000. Okay. So now, once again, we will call getC. Okay, once again, we will call getC. You know what happens with getC. So it will first test the device, then it will check whether it's the end of the file. If it's not end of the file, then it will read the character. So when it reads the character, first it will subtract that with 30. If it is less than 10, it will return it as it is. If it is not less than 10, then it will subtract 7 more and then it will give it back. Okay, so let us assume in this case that 4 is that character. I have written here 1 4. So 4 will be returned. So what is 4? 0 1 0 0. Correct. So now the value of A is 0 0 0 0 0 1 0 0. Correct. So I have read the first character which was 4, which was 1. That is present in S. I have read the second character which is 4. That is present in A. Okay. So now look, if I combine these two together, then I will get 1 4. Correct. So for example, here the instruction says add R. Add R means what? Register to register addition. So add R, S comma A. So how do I add? S comma A. So S value is 0 0 0 0 0 1 0 0. So this is, sorry, this is A. S value is 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 0 in the lower bit. Okay, so yes. So what is this? This is 0 0 0 1 plus 0 1 0 0. What is 0 0 0 1? 1. What is this? This is 4. See, now I have got this in a single byte. Okay, or 8 bits. 1 4 I have got. See, now what we do is we store stch. Okay, where 0 comma x. So x is where the index register stores the value 80. So what it does, at address 80, it will now put 1 4. Okay, at address 80, it will now put 1 4. So first byte has been filled up. So now I need to increment. Okay, I need to increment the value of x to 81. Second byte, correct? So TIXR. What does it mean? It means test and increment the value of x with the value. Okay, so x comma x. So add 1 to the memory. So it will become 81, right? So now we will go back to the same loop once again to read the second byte of my instruction. Okay, so next time 1 0 will be read. Okay, so first 1 will come, it will be sent to yes, then it will be shifted, then we will read 0, it will be present in A, we will perform the addition, so second byte, and then store it. Okay, so 1 4 1 0, right? Then we will increment the value of x with 82 39. So like this we will be loading the operating system until what? Until in this subroutine we will come across the end of the file. Okay, so special character end of the file whose hexadecimal value is 04. Okay, so once it reaches the end of the file, then it will jump back to address 80 to begin the execution of the program. Okay, so this is how a bootstrap loader loads the operating system into main memory and begins its execution. So any doubts here with regard to bootstrap loader? If you have any doubts, you can ask. Of course, there are no doubts, I believe, because I have explained it so clearly. Okay, anyways.